This is something I don't like to talk about. For the past year, I have tried the hardest I possibly could to bury these events to the furthest cavern of my mind, because I've been scared if I tried to truly process them, something in me would break and not be able to be unbroken. But it's Halloween again, and I think it's time. I think it's time I face it. My neighbors had always been sort of reclusive. They certainly weren't unfriendly, or at least I didn't think they were, based on the few times we'd interacted. But they were quiet, private people. There were certain things about them that made me think they had much more to them than I would ever know about. I hardly ever saw them outside during the day, but at night, all the lights would be on, for example, and their curtains were always drawn. The main thing that made me feel this way, though, was what they did on Halloween. Every single Halloween, without fail, they had a haunted house. Not one of those huge publicly advertised ones with paid admission at the door, although it did seem very thought out. It was free and homemade. But over the years, news spread like wildfire, and soon every time there were floods of people coming in and out. Some of them even waited outside before it was open, before it even got dark out. The kids from the surrounding neighborhoods loved it the most. Last year, there was a man standing outside the gate to stop people from going in too early. I wasn't sure who he was, because he wore a ghoulish mask over his face, but he was tall and stood perfectly still as the kids tried to get him to react. They teased him, bribed him, but he wouldn't move. But periodically he would jump out at them, and they would all scream and giggle and scatter into the street. I saw this happening on my way back from the store. The sun was setting over the horizon, dusting all the houses in an eerie shade of gold that never looked the same any other night of the year. And I remember I had severely put off getting Halloween candy until the last second. The shelves had been nearly picked clean by the time I got there. "You've never been?" Amy asked, toying with her mask. It made her too sweaty to keep it on, but she refused to abandon it, as it was part of her costume. We were all past the point where dressing up was considered embarrassing, and at the age now where it had cycled back around to seriously committing to the holiday. She was dressed as the yellow Power Ranger, and all night we had been teasing her about it. "Put on some real clothes," one of us would say. "Girls only dress slutty on Halloween, so shameful." And she would glare and say, "Do you see even an inch of my skin right now? Keep it in your pants." Nope, never. I dumped mini Snickers into an orange pumpkin-shaped bowl. Never really had time for it, and it's always so crowded over there. She shoved a spare lollipop she'd found into her mouth and grinned. "We have time before the party." "No, we don't," Jason called from the bathroom, poking his head around the corner to stare her down. He had an eye patch on, and he was scrunching gel into his brown hair. "Avery will fucking murder me if we're late. I said I'd help make the punch." Amy rolled her eyes. "It takes 2 seconds to make punch. You just pour a bunch of shit in a bowl. Clearly you don't understand the artistry of making a good punch." "I'm with Amy," Seth muttered from the couch where he was reclining, his white painted face glowing from behind his phone screen. "I think we should go. It sounds fun." "You just want to hold her when she gets scared in there," I butt in, tossing the empty bag of candy at the trash can. I missed it by an inch. "Come on, man, don't say that shit. My girlfriend has ears in these walls." "Fine, then you want to hold Jason?" "Please," Jason called out, invisible again behind the door. "I've been waiting for him to make a move for months." Amy snorted, then her face contorted, serious again. "When's the last time any of you actually felt freaked out on Halloween?" "It's definitely not actually scary in there," I said. I was warming up to the idea. I had always been curious, but I didn't want them to get their hopes up and then be sorely disappointed. "Kids are allowed in." "Perfect for you pussies," she responded. "Let's do it, please." "Fine." Jason emerged, his hair apparently done to his liking now. He tucked his billowy white pirate shirt into his pants. The punch can wait a few extra minutes, I guess. By the time we got next door, it was fully dark out. A group of pre-teens sprinted out through the gate, nearly running into us, shoving each other and laughing uproariously. "Dude, you totally shit yourself," one of them shouted. I adjusted my bare ears. The band was far too tight, and it was already starting to give me a headache. The man who had been guarding the gate was gone now, and people were flowing in and out freely. As we walked through it, I checked my phone, just to make sure we weren't missing anything. I frowned. It was at 10%. I could have sworn it had been fully charged before we left my house. I would have to ask Avery if I could borrow a charger. The yard was decorated with various silly things, like cheap cloth ghosts and spiders hanging from the trees. Jason pretended to scream at one of them, stumbling backwards, and Amy shoved him. "You have to get immersed. Take it seriously." The path people were meant to take was lined with caution tape. It led into my neighbor's basement, and then, I assumed, up through the house and back through the front door. It definitely wouldn't take us very long to get through if that was all there was. A small chill ran up my spine as we took the steps down to the basement, but I was pretty sure it was just a regular basement chill, not an especially unique one. There were real cobwebs on the railings, and I tried to avoid getting them stuck to my fuzzy outfit. As we took the last step, another cloth spider fell down from above, right in front of our faces, eyes glowing an artificial red. Seth took a small step back, and Jason laughed, poking him in the ribs. "Don't tap out already, big guy." Seth frowned, shaking his head. It startled me a little. "Shut up." There were a couple people down there milling around. It looked like it was usually more of a storage room the rest of the year. There were shelves lined with hundreds of jars, filled with what looked to be canned fruits and vegetables. It was like they were preparing for the apocalypse. When I got closer, I could see that some of them had been replaced by fake eyeballs and fingers, things like that. I bit back a smile. So cheesy. There was thumping from upstairs, and then someone shrieked playfully. I was so distracted by the sound, I didn't notice the person creeping up on us until it was too late. A man wearing a clown mask and all white jumped at us, roaring. Jason yelped and scrambled away, his hands flying out to protect himself. Amy burst into laughter. "Who's scared now?" I opened my mouth to chime in, but right then my phone rang. For some reason it sounded louder than usual, and I felt embarrassed, as if I'd left my ringer on in a movie theater. I ducked away to check it. It was my mom. My heart sunk. Even though that was silly, she was probably just calling to wish me a happy Halloween. But lately I got anxious every time she called. I was always sure it must be bad news. I picked up, raising my hand to my friends, as if to say 1 second. "Hi, Mom," I said cheerfully. "What's up? How are you?" There was silence on the other end for a little too long for comfort. Then I heard a strange wheezing sound. "Mom, are you okay? Is Dad okay?" More quiet. Just that strange breathing. Then I heard her speak, soft and ragged, and my blood ran cold. "Kenny?" I bit the inside of my cheek. "Yes, Mom, it's Kenny. What's going on?" "What's going on?" I froze. Suddenly there was a lump in my throat and I couldn't swallow. I could barely even get a breath in. This conversation felt far too familiar and far too vivid. It felt like a nightmare I had had countless times since my dad's diagnosis. It felt deeply wrong. "Mom," I said slowly, "do you know where you are right now?" Suddenly it was like the air came back to the room, and my mother's voice rang out bright and happy like usual. "Kenny, honey, I'm having trouble hearing you." I took a deep breath. "Sorry, Mom, I think there's a bad connection. I'm in a basement right now." "In a basement? Oh my. Are you making bad decisions?" I smiled, relief washing over me. It had just been a service issue. Everything was okay. "No, Mom, I'm in a haunted house." "Scary, that sounds like fun." "It is. I can't talk long. People are looking at me weird." I looked up to check if this was, in fact, true. But to my surprise, the basement was completely empty now. All of the people who had been exploring before were gone, including my friends. They must have gone upstairs without me, assholes. "That's all right, honey. I just called to say happy Halloween. Your dad and I are watching scary movies and giving out candy tonight." At the mention of my dad, I smiled. It was okay. Everyone was okay. "Good, Mom, that sounds nice." I love you, Kenny. I love you too. Tell Dad I say hi. I will, baby. Talk to you soon. The line went dead. Now that I wasn't on the phone, it felt much more creepy down here, all alone. The house was completely silent. I couldn't even hear anything from upstairs anymore. I wondered for a second if my friends were planning a prank. If, as soon as I got up there, they were all going to jump out at me. I rolled my eyes at the thought. The staircase was dark, save for a single orange bulb and the dim glow from what looked like a kitchen at the top. I sighed and began to climb, mentally preparing myself to be jump scared. There couldn't have been more than 10 steps, but halfway up, I started to feel confused. I had been walking for too long. I hadn't counted them, but surely I had taken more than that. After what had to be around 20 more seconds, my confusion grew. Had it really been that many more steps than I had thought? Had it been some kind of trick of the light? Right when I was about to turn around and look back down into the basement, I reached the door. Before I could step through it, it slammed shut in my face, and I fell backwards in surprise, my heart hammering in my chest. I prepared for the fall, for the tumble back down the concrete steps, for my head smacking into something hard. But it didn't come. I did hit the steps, and sharp pain shot up my tailbone, but I wasn't falling down. Slowly I turned and looked behind me, and up the stairs to the kitchen door. I turned back around, and I was looking at the basement I had just been in. My mind felt like it was short-circuiting. How could that be possible? I got up, wincing and brushing myself off. Hello? Is anyone down here? There was no response. I moved back into the basement. Everything looked the same. Still the shelves of canned food and the cloth spider by the door. The huge, very closed metal doors. I tried the handles. I yanked with all my strength. They wouldn't budge. There was no going back that way. I told myself this could still be a prank. Closing the doors could be, at least. Everything else I just couldn't think about, not until I got out of here. I was feeling seriously unnerved, and I just needed to find my friends and leave. Fuck the haunted house. I would much rather be in a cozy house party, drinking Jason's way too strong punch and complimenting people's costumes. I turned back to the stairs, and without planning too far ahead, I sprinted up them, taking 2 steps at a time. I slammed through the door into the kitchen, almost falling flat on my face when it swung open without any protest. I was in my neighbor's kitchen. I looked around, taking it in. They had a fridge covered in magnets and a little island decorated with tiny pumpkins. It didn't seem very scary in here, but no one was here. The room was completely empty. Jason? I called out, trying to keep the shake out of my voice. Amy? Seth? This isn't fucking funny. Where are you guys? I took another step. As I looked around, fear flooded back in, and my hands began to tremble. It was like the second I looked away from something, it changed. I could have every detail of the pictures on the wall memorized, but as soon as I looked at something else and then back, it was different. It was like the house was warping just out of the corner of my eye, and I recognized what it was warping into. It was my kitchen. It was my parents' kitchen, exactly the same as it had been the last time I had seen it. I reached out and touched the counter, as if my hand might phase right through it. Same old cold tile, vastly different from the smooth wood it had been a second ago. I could hear someone talking, but their voice was far away and distant, like they were in another room. I struggled to determine whether it was real or just in my head. It sounded like my mother's voice, I realized. But that was impossible. All of this was impossible. In a basement, oh my. Are you making bad decisions? Her voice was muffled through the walls, but I could just barely make out what she was saying. Mom? I called out, and it came out weak. I sounded like a child, lost and scared in the supermarket. Kenny, honey, I'm having trouble hearing you. I swore I could just barely make someone responding to her, so quiet and so far away. It was my voice. I forced my legs to move. My eyes felt watery and my entire body was ice cold. But I took one step after another into the next room, following the sound. I opened the door into my childhood bedroom. My mother's voice was gone, leaving only heavy, complete silence. Outside of my window, Beyond the windowsill lined with action figures, it was sunny and bright. Too bright to see my backyard, or what would have been my backyard had this been real. Everything was exactly how it had been when I was little, down to the color of my bed sheets, down to the lint on the carpet and the water stain on the ceiling. My stomach twisted painfully, and I had to brace myself against the wall so I didn't collapse. I stepped in front of my old mirror. I just needed to look at myself. I needed to see the stupid bear costume I had put on that afternoon and laughed with my friends about and entered this house wearing. I needed to understand something, anything, so I could feel grounded, so I could know I was still real. When I saw my reflection, I almost jumped out of my skin. I almost sprinted back out of the room, but I couldn't move. I didn't recognize the person looking back at me. For a moment I thought I had been wrong. It was a door and not a mirror. But behind the man I was looking at was an inverted version of the bedroom I was standing in, an exact replica. The man was wearing my costume, but his face was wrong. I stepped closer, my knees weak. The man stepped closer too. This was me. This was me, but I didn't recognize myself. I touched my face. My reflection did too. My reflection's expression contorted into one of agonizing horror. I felt my own face scrunching up, and the tears that were welling up in my eyes. In another room I heard a knock, then 3 more. The way it cut through the thick silence made it sound almost deafening, despite being far away. I turned towards the door. My reflection did too. Slowly, very slowly, I left my bedroom. I was in my parents' living room. The TV was on, like it always was, playing some kind of scary movie. But the sound must have been muted. Someone was knocking on the door across the room from me. It started soft, but got increasingly desperate. Someone really wanted to be let in. I just stared at my own front door, the front door from my childhood, the front door I had seen 1,000,000 times, entered and exited through 1,000,000 times, knew like the back of my hand. The front door that I could not possibly be standing in front of right now. I finally started to cry.
Kenny?
My dad's voice came from the other side, the knocking momentarily ceasing. Kenny, are you in there? I said nothing, did nothing. I searched the deepest recesses of my mind for the truth, for what was really happening here, for where I was. And I realized I couldn't remember. I couldn't remember getting here. I couldn't remember who I had come here with, what we had been doing, why we had been doing it. I couldn't remember who I was. Let me in, buddy. His voice was broken and small. Please, I'm scared. I walked to the door. I couldn't remember deciding to do it or telling my body to move at all. Please let me in, Kenny. Please open the door. I don't know what's going on. What's wrong with me? I reached out. My fingers touched the smooth brass doorknob. Hello? A voice came from behind me, violently snapping me out of it. It was a different voice, and not a distant one, a real one. A woman's voice. I turned around. My neighbor stood in the doorway of the room that was now completely different. A room that wasn't my parents' living room, staring at me with a strange look on both of their faces. The man was holding 2 grocery bags, and the woman was holding her chest, as if I had startled her. I opened my mouth, but no sound would come out. I felt numb. I felt broken down and useless. I didn't feel human anymore. What are you doing here? The woman tried again. Goodness, sweetheart, are you okay? Did you pee yourself? I looked down. I didn't know how I hadn't noticed, but I had. My bear costume had a dark patch down one of my legs, but I couldn't really feel the warmth on my skin. I couldn't really feel anything. I tried, but my voice broke. I tried again. The haunted house. I was with my friends, and we came for the haunted house. The woman's face changed, twisted into one of pity and confusion rather than alarm. Halloween isn't until tomorrow, sweetheart. We're not doing the haunted house yet. I shook my head, but I had no fight in me. I had no argument. Oh, was all that I could muster. The woman stepped toward me. My heart began to race again, and it felt like at this point it might just explode. Come here, sit down. I can get you some fresh clothes, okay? Who can we call? I shook my head again. I didn't want to sit down. I just wanted to get out of here. She was holding her hand out to me like I was a wild animal, something that might bite her if she wasn't gentle. I looked back at the door. It wasn't my front door anymore. It was the inside of one I had never seen before. Without hesitating further, I yanked it open and spilled out down the steps, the cold night air enveloping me instantly. I slammed right into Jason. My friend laughed and slammed his hand into my back, and I flinched. I couldn't breathe. My vision was blurry. I tried to look around, tried to comprehend my surroundings. We were in the yard again, and it was Halloween. The same cheesy decorations hung from the trees. There were the same children giggling and teasing each other in the street, lugging around all of their candy. "Dude, we lost you in there. Are you okay?" "He looks like he's seen a ghost," Amy said. She was eating another lollipop. Everything came flooding back to me all at once. "I don't blame you," Seth said, smiling at me, showing me his fake vampire teeth. "That guy with the chainsaw was actually pretty terrifying. I'm glad we went." I didn't know what to say. Had any of it been real? Had they seriously not experienced anything that I just had? Or was this some kind of trick too? "He's speechless," Amy joked, but she looked a little worried. "Come on, man, let's get to that party. A beer will fix you right up." I nodded, forcing a smile. I didn't want to tell them. I didn't know which was worse, if it really had happened or if it hadn't. I never told them what happened to me. Now it's Halloween again. I can hear the kids outside, already lined up in front of the neighbor's haunted house, eager to go in. I've been dreading this day all year, but I had been prepared. I had nearly convinced myself it was okay, that it really was just a weird hallucination, or maybe some kind of joke that I was never let in on. But this morning, my mom called me. I didn't pick up. Something felt off about it. And then she called me again, and again. She's calling me right now, as my phone is sitting on the table, and I swear I'm starting to hear knocking at the door.